This review is a double header and it's about two Motorart models. Model 300041 is the Volvo FMX tipper, and Model 300066 is the Volvo EC220E crawler excavator. We'll start by unboxing the tipper, and the simple packaging says it's a 6x4 chassis, but we'll see about that a little bit later on. The model is contained between a pair of plastic formers, so we can just lift it out. And unusually, there's also a small instruction leaflet. The box for the EC220E is the standard Volvo design for construction machines. There's no information about the real machine, but at least there's a nice photo on the back. The packaging around the model is the same kind of design. It's a pair of interlocking plastic formers, so if we separate them, then we can lift the model out. The track links on this model are delicate, so they're shrink wrapped in the factory. But other than that, there's no assembly to do on these models because they're both complete out of the box. Starting with the tipper, it's fairly well detailed, but much of it is in plastic. And in fact, the front axle is driven, making it a 6x6 chassis and not a 6x4, as stated on the box. The wheels are also plastic, although they look reasonably good. The generic Volvo FMX cab looks okay, but that does mean there's no number plate. A number of the detailed parts of the cab are plastic, and that includes the grab rail and ladder. And the door mirrors are also plastic. At the rear, the wheel arches and mud flaps are all one piece of plastic, the lights have plastic lenses, and the metal body is quite good, and the tailgate is plastic, although with a very good colour match. Moving on to the EC220E, and the plates underneath are all metal and reasonably detailed, and the track links are metal and finely cast. The track frames look good, but they don't have working rollers. The controls inside the cab are quite realistic, although the beacon light on the top would have looked much better if it wasn't the painted variety. The casting of the body is nice, and it has the Volvo name embossed in the counterweight. Some of the detailed aspects of this model are very good because the handrails are metal and very finely cast. And if we look at the connection rivets on the boom, they're nice and small. There are hydraulic hoses, although they don't run to the ram jackets, but at least the pistons are metal. The connection pins on the simple metal bucket are also reasonably discreet. Moving on to the features, and first up we look at the FMX tipper, and it rolls reasonably well. And if we pick it up and flip it over, we see that the rear wheels are fixed to common axles. The steering at the front does work, but it's a bit of a flimsy mechanism. And it's also very constrained because you can't steer the truck much without the tyres being fouled. So the ability to pose the model turning is limited. Moving on to the tipper, the ram is a multi-stage cylinder, and it's good in terms of stiffness because any pose can be held. And at the back, just like me, it's not a swinger. For the last feature on the tipper, you get a small instruction sheet which tells you how to tilt the cab. And you probably need it because it is a clunky old mechanism. You have to lift the cab up and try and tilt it forward. But the review model wouldn't stay in a tilted position. Looking underneath, there is a plastic engine, but it is somewhat simplistic. The real problem, however, comes trying to get the cab to sit back down in a proper position. And it certainly is fiddly trying to get it back into place. Next, we'll move on to the EC220E, and the tracks won't roll on a smooth surface, although you can turn them by hand. But really, they seem very delicate, and I wouldn't recommend really using them in anger. Also unusually, they're not spring-loaded for tension. Let's now get our head around rotating, and around it goes, and it's reasonably smooth. A feature that's usual on Motorart models is an opening engine cover, and this one's got one too. But again, it seems a little bit delicate, so you'd need to be careful with it, and there at least is an engine to be seen underneath. And lastly, we move on to see how the EC220E performs at digging. Well, the rams are reasonably stiff, so most poses can be held, but some of the movement is quite restricted. For example, on the bucket, it will hardly go back at all. Even so, you could set many poses that you want, but how does it do digging at depth? Well, here again, things are really quite restricted, and the boom doesn't go down anywhere near as low as on the real machine. Summing up for the Volvo tipper, and it's not the highest quality model that you'll find. It's detailed and it looks okay, but there's a lot of plastic in it, and the tilting cab isn't so good. So this model is recommended if you can accept all of those issues. Moving on to the EC220E, and this is a much better model than the earlier EC220D version. Both the detail level and the quality have been significantly improved, although the movement of the boomstick and bucket could still be better. It looks good with other models, and overall it's easier to recommend.